Hello everyone, my name is Deepika Verma, Senior Research Fellow of Batch 2019 under supervision of Professor Rajiv Kumar Sir, Sociology Department. This lecture is all about the concept of culture. In this lecture, I have explained some features of culture, and there will be a next part of this lecture. So let's see what is culture. Culture is one of the most important concepts in social science. The study of human society immediately and necessarily leads to the study of its culture. The study of society or any aspect of it becomes incomplete without a proper understanding of the culture of that society. Culture and society go together and they are inseparable. Culture is a unique possession of man. It is one of the distinguishing traits of human society. Culture does not exist at the subhuman level. Only man is born and brought up in a cultural environment. Other animals live in a natural environment. Every man is born into a society is the same as saying that every man is born into a culture. Culture is a very broad term that includes in itself all our walks of life and our modes of behavior, our philosophies and ethics, our morals and manners, our customs and traditions, our religious, political, economic and other type of activities. Culture include all that man has acquired in his individual and social life. In the words of McIver Page, culture is a realm of styles, of values, of emotional attachment and of intellectual advantages. It is the entire social heritage which the individual receives from the group. In this way, according to B. Malinowski, culture is a cumulative creation of man. He also regards culture as a handiwork of man and the medium through which he achieves his ends. According to E.B. Tyler, culture is the complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, moral, laws, customs, and other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. According to Robert Bestead, culture is a complex whole that consists of all the ways we think and we do and everything we have as a member of society. In this way, culture is a accumulation of thoughts, values, and objects. It is a social heritage acquired by us from preceding generations through learning, as distinguished from the biological heritage, which is passed on to us automatically through the genes. I hope the meaning of culture is clear to all of you. Now let's see the characteristics of culture one by one. First one is that culture is learned, which means that culture is not inherited biologically but learned socially by man. It is not an inborn tendency. There is no cultural instinct as such. Culture is often called learned way of behavior. Unlearned behaviors such as closing the eyes while sleeping, the eye blinking reflex and so on are purely physiological and not cultural. Shaking hand or saying thanks and saving and dressing and other hand are cultural. Similarly, wearing uh, clothes, combing the hair, wearing ornaments, cooking the food, drinking from glass, eating from a plate or a leaf, reading a newspaper, driving a car, etc. are all ways of behavior learned by man culturally. Next is culture is social, which means culture does not exist in isolation. Neither is it an individual phenomena, it is a product of society. It originates and develops through the social interactions. It is shared by the member society. No man can acquire culture without association with other human beings. Man becomes man only among men. It is the culture which helps man to develop human qualities in a human environment. Deprivation of company or association of other individuals to an individual is nothing but deprivation of human qualities. Next is culture is shared, which means that culture is the sociological, in sociological sense, is something which is shared. It is not something that an individual alone can possess. For example, customs, traditions, beliefs, ideas, values, morals, etc. are all shared by people of a group or society. The invention of Aryabhatta or Albert Einstein, the literary works of Kalidas, Dante, the philosophical works of Shankaracharya or Swami Vivekananda, the artistic works of Ravi Verma and etc. are all shared by large number of people. Culture is something adopted, used, believed, practiced or possessed by more than one person. It depends upon group life of its existence according to our sociological thinker Robert Bainstead. Next is culture is transmissive. That means that culture is capable of being transmitted from one generation to the next. The parent pass one culture trends to their children and they in turn to their children and so on. Culture is transmitted not through genes but by the means of language. Language is the main vehicle of culture. Language in its different forms like reading, writing and speaking make it possible for the present generation to understand the achievements of earlier generations. But language itself is a part of culture. Once language is acquired, it unfolds to the individual its wide field. Transmission of culture may take place by imitation as well as by instruction. Next is culture is continuous and cumulative. That means culture exists as a continuous process. It is historical growth. It tends to become cumulative. Culture is a growing whole which includes in itself the achievements of the past, the present, and makes provision for the future achievements of mankind. Culture may thus conceived of as a kind of stream flowing down through the centuries from one generation to other. Hence, some sociologists like Linton call culture the social heritage of man. Robert Bainstead writes, culture is the memory of human race. It becomes difficult for us to imagine what society would be like without the accumulation of culture, what our life would be without it. In this way, culture is continuous and cumulative in nature. Next is culture is consistent and integrated. That means culture is in its development has revealed a tendency to be consistent. At the same time, different parts of culture are interconnected. For example, the value system of a society is closely connected with its other aspects such as morality, religion, customs, tradition, beliefs, and so on. Next characteristic of culture is that culture is dynamic in nature and is adaptive, which means that culture is relatively stable. It is not always static. It is subject to slow but constant changes. Change and growth are latent in culture. We find amazing growth in the present Indian culture when we compare it with the culture of Vedic times. Culture is hence dynamic in nature. Culture is responsive to the changing conditions of the physical world. It is adaptive. It also intervenes in the natural environment and helps man in his process of adjustment. Just as our houses shelter us from the storms, so also does our culture helps us from natural dangers and assist us to survive. Few of us indeed could survive without culture. In this way, culture is dynamic and adaptive. Next is culture is gratifying, which means that culture provides proper opportunities and prescribes means for the satisfaction of our needs and desires. These needs may be biological or social in nature. Our need for food, shelter, and clothing on one hand, and our desires for status, name, fame, money, etc. are all for example fulfilled according to the cultural ways. Culture determines and guides the varied activities of men. In fact, culture is defined as a process through which human beings satisfy their wants. Next is culture varies from society to society. That means every society has culture of its own. It differs from society to society. Culture of every society is unique to itself. Culture are not uniform. Cultural elements such as customs, traditions, morals, ideals, values, beliefs, practices, philosophies, etc. are not uniform everywhere. Way of eating, speaking, greeting, dressing, entertaining, living, etc. of different societies differs significantly. Culture varies from time to time also. No culture even remain constant or changeless. If in this way, culture varies from society to society. Next is culture is super organic and ideational. That means that by super organic, Herbert Spencer means that culture is neither organic nor inorganic in nature but above these two. The term implies that the social meaning of physical object and physiological acts. The social meaning may be interdependent of physiological and physical properties and characteristics. For example, the social meaning of a national flag is not just a piece of colored cloth. The flag represents a nation. Similarly, priests and prisoners, professors and professionals, players, engineers, doctors, farmers and soldiers and others are not just biological beings. They are viewed in their social society differently. Their social status and role can be understood only through culture. Further, every society considered its culture as an ideal. It is regarded as an end in itself. It is intrinsically valuable. The people are also aware of their culture as an ideal one. They are proud of their cultural heritage. In this way, culture is superorganic and ideation in nature. These were few characteristics of culture. I hope you all have understood the meaning and the characteristics. Uh, Now I will explain other concepts of culture in a different part. With all, I'm ending this presentation. Thank you so much.